Hey guys, Boo here, and today I'm going to do the tutorial on UV mapping, which has been a bit late. I'm really sorry about that. And today we're going to be basically focusing on making the texture for your model, and you're going to have to get used to some sort of paint program. I personally use paint.net. The icon here is broken, but it looks like this. You also have alternatives such as Photoshop, and please, for the love of God, do not use the paint that comes with Microsoft because it is terrible, and it doesn't even let you work with transparency as well as the other programs do, or I'm not even sure if it lets you at all. So it's gonna be useful to get familiar with a paint program. If you're not too sure how to use one, I'm going to more or less run a little bit down how to use paint.net here, but I won't be really focusing on it. And when it comes to making the textures for a model, something that I'd always suggest is that you get some things called the pepakura. These are basically they're 3D models, but they're printed out in paper. And what you can do with them is you cut them out, you apply glue to the little white spots right here, you fold them on the lines, and when you glue everything together, it should end up with a nice 3D model like this. And as a kid, I've always done lots of these, and trust me, it is immensely helpful in understanding how to do paper crafts. How to how to do UV maps. For example, here is one of this anime girl. I don't know her name. I know it's not an anime girl. It's, hologram singer. So as you can see, this is more or less how a UV map looks like, and it really helps visualize if you know how to grab a 3D object and to just unfold it into a flat shape. Um, Cubes are the most famous type of 2D rendering for 3D shape, because all you have to do is you just need to apply glue onto these sides here, and then you just fold this face down, this face down, this face to the right, these two to the left, and it should form a cube when you close up everything together. If you don't have the experience and you don't feel like adventuring into the wonderful, I might add, world of Pepakura, or some of you know Papercraft, then we can just jump straight into UV mapping. So this is the crest shield that we were working on in the past video. I've done a little improvement on the handle because I didn't quite like how it's extremely fat throughout the entire thing. I thinned out the edges, made it a bit more flat just to make it look like an actual handle. And this is all done through modifiers. I'll cover modifiers in another tutorial eventually, so, but that's not the biggest concern right now. So now that we have our shield model, here's just a reference picture of more or less how the shield originally looked like. And we're going to basically we're going to create our own style, obviously, because we don't just want to flat copy paste. But this can give us a neat idea of how we're going to do this thing. And so here's a shield, and let's go into edit mode. Now what you want to do is you want to just select the faces here in the front. So you press C to open up this little brush thing, and you just start highlighting these little faces here, just the front faces, not the ones on the sides, not the ones below, just the ones at the top, at the front of the shield. Okay, once you have that ready, press P and separate it. We want to have this as a separate model, trust me on this. So let me move this to another layer. Here's something I didn't realize until right now. We really will not be needing this extra face here down the middle, so we're better off deleting it. So let me just delete that face. Okay. Next, we want to because the handle is actually a loose piece. I'm going to select everything, press P, loose parts. The handle isn't technically connected to anything, so we can just grab it separately, and I'm going to move it to a layer by pressing M. Okay. Next, we're going to highlight the faces over here at the bottom. So quickly with our brush tool, Just select everything like so. Zoom in over here. Highlight these faces. Whoops, that's a bit of a mistake. Select these, and I'll split by loose parts. Not loose parts, sorry, by selection. Okay, and move this to the same layer. Last thing that is left is we need to split up this massive long piece. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm not actually going to break the model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one vertex, this one edge here, and in the shading UV's map, I'm going to select mark seam. Now this face that's selected should now be red. Basically what mark seam does is it tells Blender this is where we want to split the model when we are doing the UV map. And just to quickly show you, if I select this this entire model as it is and I UV map it, as you can see it's going to be one entire long piece like this. But as soon as I mark the seam here and I unwrap it once again, it should now be split there and it should be one long straight line like this. It doesn't look too nice right now, but we can work on it eventually. So now that this is ready, I'm going to move it to a separate. I'm going to move all the pieces back in like this. Okay, now we want to UV map them one at a time. So I select the entire face, I press U, I press unwrap over here. So this is how it looks like so far. This here is our texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A. I'm going to rotate this like so. I'm going to scale it by 0.5. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees like so. And I'm just going to position this a little like this. I'm going to do the same now with the bottom piece. Unwrap, go over here, UV image editor, rotate like so. Okay, close enough. Rotate 90, scale 0.5. And I'm going to place this on this far end over here. Next, this handle here, we don't, what you can do, for example, would be to select these edges over here around the side of the handle, and these edges here like this. You could mark a seam here like this. Then what you could do would be pick one of the sides over here like this and mark a seam here like this, so it creates like an arch. Basically this is going to open up here, and this handle is going to come out as a separate piece from these bottom pieces down here. And okay, yeah, I thought I didn't mark that piece over there. So now when we unwrap it, these two should be separate pieces. This should be one long flat piece. And yes, this though has a terrible shape, which I'm going to have to fix really quickly. So one of the reasons I believe is because these have little flat pads at the bottom. I'm going to press M, move to a different layer so that we can work on it separately. And sure enough, those flat pads are the culprit. Now I can actually delete them since I really will not be needing them, since they do not actually show in the model because they are inside of the model. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete these faces right here. Delete faces like so. Now I think this should be fine when we unwrap it. This might look a little weird. I'm gonna see that right now. Okay, they came out actually rather nice. Now one thing that we can do is, because this piece is going to share the same texture, the exact same texture area of this piece, we can grab these vertices. We can use the brush, obviously. Now here we need to zoom in because these are a bit closer together, and we can just position them on top of each other. Rotate maybe by 100 degrees, or not, since I thought this was going to fix this piece here. In that case, scale on x -1. So S on x -1, and sure enough it does seem to match a bit better. You can always forcefully match the pieces. I wouldn't mess around with the UV map too much unless you know exactly what you're doing. This as it is should be perfectly fine. And of course, the last piece of the puzzle technically, it is a puzzle, would be this little piece on the side. Now, I'm trying to think of a way to make this flat, but not too crappy, not too long. So I'm going to select the little edges here where the metal bends, or well, in this case, the model. And I'm going to mark some seams here, like this. And let's see how this unwraps. Hopefully it unwraps a little better. It is better. So what I'm going to do, yeah, I guess we can work with as it is right now. I mean, I could also work with this. I just don't really like the way it looks. I mean, let me see. If I scale this down, if I select the little edges here on the sides, like this, slowly, and easier with my right click and shift, you can scale it down, maybe give it a little thickness. This could work actually, so never mind what I was doing over there with the seams on this one. They won't really be necessary. Okay, move this to the other layer. Apparently there's something here. It doesn't matter, we can delete it if it wants to be deleted. There we go. And we can move this back to the original layer. I just like having it in the first layer. Doesn't really make a difference. Join everything, so select one of the pieces here, so that handle, and now I'm going to go over here and remove doubles. So now this should all be one entire piece except the handle, which is a separate part. Now if I select this, okay, so there is a few things that I should have thought about first before I merged it, which was the position of each piece. So I'm going to undo some more. I'm going to select each piece, go to their UV map, move them over here to the side, the ones that I'm pretty certain are going to overlap. I'm just going to move them over and I will adjust everything. Okay, now once I join it with Control J, remove doubles, UV editor. Okay, now one thing that is going to be an issue is that these pieces here, they need to be as big as possible because this is, after all, the biggest part of the model. It's the best looking part of the model, hopefully too. So we need to make sure that they take up most of the texture, otherwise it will be a blurry mess. Well, unless your texture already is supposed to be a blurry mess, if you're making a Minecraft style game or something. In that case, go wild. So I'm trying to find a way to fit up as much space as these pieces with as much space as I can. This I'm going to rotate this 180. Gonna move it down here like this. Gonna move this, grab it like this. Okay, still a bit too big. So this is here will be the center line right here, the texture. So I'm gonna scale this, since this is taking up about 5 blocks. Let me see, maybe by scale 0.75 should do. And sure enough, it pretty much does. I'm just going to grab it and move it up here. And I'm just going to select this piece right here. Do about the same. Scale 0.75. Grab it. What I could do actually is, because this here is the front part of the piece and this is what most people are going to be caring about, I might as well scale it by 0.25, scale by 1.25. Since like this, it will definitely have a better resolution image. Sorry about all the shifting around, but this isn't necessarily something you just get instantly. It's something that you want to test until you get what you want to look like. Okay. So this here is our front piece, the front of the shield. This here is the back part of the shield. This here is the side of the shield, and this could actually share about the same area as the piece over here that's on the back of the shield. And this the handle pieces, I can move them in here, make them a small resolution. Since they are a smaller texture, it's not too bad of a thing if the quality isn't amazing. I'm going to see, because I want this piece to be as high resolution as possible since it is a longer piece than the other handle part there. And try to keep your try to keep everything inside of the texture area. Even if it's not that big of an issue, because imagine that this piece is sticking out like this. What the game does is it wraps this, so this will now show up over here, and it'll be part of this over here. It tiles basically, but we don't want this to share the same texture as the face. So I'm going to try to scale this around here. Maybe if I rotate it a bit more like this, we can keep it inside. And that should be good. Actually, I might have done something really stupid. Well, it's about the same size, so at this point it doesn't really matter too much. So now we have the front. We have our texture ready to go. Now we want to actually start making the texture so that we don't just get this beautiful purple, which actually does look mad sexy, but we don't really want that because it's not realistic. So I'm going to select everything, going to go to UVs, export UV layout. I'm going to save this, I guess, in here. So UV, this is where the picture is, and export. Give it a minute because it usually exports as a pretty big image size. I'm going to go to 3D, and I'm going to save this, and I can delete this backup. And you can see right here our little UV map as a separate image. So now we can start working on the texture. So I'm going to open up paint.net. I'm going to drag in the texture like so. And as you can see, it can be a bit annoying because the background is transparent. So I'm going to create a new layer, shift it down by pressing the down arrow, paint bucket tool, and I'm going to paint the background black. Okay, so now we want to start making the parts of the shield. And we're going to need a metal texture. I sadly do not have, because I didn't plan ahead, I didn't have the time to go out and take some pictures of metal. So I'm just going to use a picture online. When you're selling stuff, you don't really want to use stuff that is copyrighted. In this case, it should be fine so long as I don't sell this. And so let me think. We want to do metal seamless. It always helps if the texture is seamless. So, and if you have enough knowledge with programs such as Photoshop, you can actually make your own texture. In fact, we can go ahead and make our own metal texture for this little video. Let's make this 500. Actually, let's make it 1024 by 1024. You want to use sizes that are powers of 2. So I'm going to go ahead and paint everything gray. Going to go to Effects, going to add some noise. Now saturation all the way down here. I'm going to decrease the intensity like this. Something like this should do. I'm going to go to blurs, add a Gaussian blur like this. Not too much. This should be fine, like this. Now I'm going to add some more noise, like this. Blur it once again. Blur. And let me see what grain does, because I don't remember. This even creates shadows, which is interesting. I won't be working with this since it's a custom plugin. Yeah, I have a bunch of custom plugins for Paint.net that are really useful. They came in a pack. I'll put a link in the description of this video so that you can get these plugins because they have a lot of useful things, especially the conditional hue and saturation. That might actually help us out when we're making this. So I'm going to add a little bit of color saturation. I'm going to try to not put as much intensity. This. Going to black and white this like so. Okay. Going to go to blurs. I want to add a very small Gaussian blur. Maybe this should do. 3, and going to go ahead and what was it? Noise is what I want. Add a noise. No saturation, just now very little intensity, just to give it a few more bumps. And this should be fine as it is right now. Now, this texture is not seamless, meaning that if I put this texture right next to itself, it's not going to tile very well. I'll just show you that really quickly. So here's the grab of the texture. Now if I move it over here like this, and so as you can see, there is a visible division of the line. It's not too bad with this texture because it is extremely blurry, but if you're making seamless textures, then you're gonna have to mess around with this tool here, the gradient, which allows you to basically, if you put this on a new layer like this, whoops, if I put this texture on a new layer and I delete the one that's on the bottom layer here, so that now this texture is on a separate layer, if you can add Gaussian, and here instead, if I set this to black and white, you can change this to transparency, which allows you, oops, wrong layer, which allows you to basically do like this. And if you make this texture just a bit bigger than the size you're going to be working with, you can instead make it actually tile. So I just took this top texture here, which for some reason copied off over there on the side. I'm going to paste it, move it like this just a bit, and then if I take the Gaussian tool, where is the edge? Around here. So this texture is supposedly overlapping the other one, and if I just add a little bit of Gaussian, it gives it a little bit more of a blend like this, since this does a little fade effect. This should help make your texture seem a bit more seamless. I'm not going to be working with a seamless texture since it's not that big of an issue for me in this tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this picture as it is right now. Now I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to place this new texture on top. And now I'm going to move this down, and here we have a reference image. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick the magic wand. I'm going to select the layer here that has the UV map, this one here. I'm going to select the edges around. Oops, that was the wrong layer. Select the edges around like this. I'm going to take the tolerance down a little so that it doesn't select these little parts over here and this part here. And I'm going to go ahead and select this layer and I'm going to delete it. So now this should be its own separate texture like this with the shape of our UV map. Now obviously this is going to have some jagged edges, so I'm going to apply a feather right here, or an anti-alias, which should work too. Change the sharpness to something higher. This should supposedly make the texture a bit thicker depending on which tool you're using. There was one here that I know, this one here tends to make it a little bit thicker, which is useful for us with what we're doing. So here is, it's going to render for a second. Here is the original one. Here is the new one with our added thickness to it. We can just go ahead and now feather this just to make it blend a little bit nicer. Okay. Now, one thing that I do not like about this texture is, one, the color. Actually, it's just the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the separate parts like this. I'm going to go ahead with the tolerance, up it up a little because this is blending with the background. And I'm going to cut this and going to place it in a separate layer. now this, because these are the handle pieces, whoops, this and this are handle pieces, I'm going to cut them all in other separate layers and put them like this. And let's go ahead and actually, because this belongs with this other layer here, so I'm going to go ahead and merge the two. So now we have a layer with the front piece and the back piece and the side piece, and a layer with the handle pieces. So I'm going to now apply a curve, and what curve lets you do is whoops, wrong layer, sorry. It lets you basically apply a color to this even though it has none. So I'm going to select red and I'm going to push this down like this. It made it blue, and it doesn't matter honestly, because I have another tool here called conditional hue and saturation. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to pick a color from the spectrum. So in this case I want to pick colors that are in the blue range, like this. It doesn't really matter since I don't have any specific other colors around here. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color. I want a red so that I can make a bronze looking handle like this. I'm going to down the saturation like this. I'm going to add some darkness to it, and we might actually want to make this orange, because orange tends to have the more bronze looking color that I want. This is really all about just trial and testing things until it works and looks good. I'm just going to up the saturation to 200 just so I can get the actual color. I'm going to lower this down a little. Okay, so now this is starting to look a bit more brown. I'm going to darken this down like this. Now you want to be really careful because you don't want a really dark brown, because then that's going to look extremely unrealistic. It's going to look like it's some silly putty. So I'm going to pick this one here and lower the saturation like this so it has a more grayish tone to it. I am applying a Zack Snyder filter all over this thing like this, and now this has a color that I like a lot better now. I'm gonna just mess a little with the brightness just to see if it will look any better. Contrast maybe, nah, it should be fine as it is like this. We'll see. This here is too dark for my liking, so I'm going to up brightness a little. I don't want to do too much. Contrast. Actually, what I can do is I can up the brightness to something like this, and I can go ahead and apply a little bit of blurring just to remove these visible too much blurring. I might actually not end up by applying that low blur. I'm just going to whoops, apply some less brightness to it if it wishes to. Okay, something like this should be fine in my opinion. Honestly though, I can always change the texture anyway, so it's not that big of an issue. So we can delete the UV map layer since we're not going to be working with it anymore. We can now merge the two layers like this. We can merge this layer with the background layer. We can save this, and we can go ahead and shove this into Blender like this. It's just a matter of drag and dropping. As you can see, our shield now has our texture. This here is going to be a bit inconvenient, and this is because the texture is merging here with the part that's darkening a little. So if you just select that little face like this, and you just scale it down just a bit, should be fine. This is one of the consequences of blurring. You should be careful with. I'm just going to go ahead and select everything that's here. And to make sure that everything is selected, I'm going to grab it, and everything is selected. So I'm going to scale this down just a bit. please. Just a bit, please. Like that. Let's go ahead, select these. Scale it down just a bit. It shouldn't be too visible with the darker colors, but it's still going to be somewhat visible regardless. With this, it actually isn't that big of a problem because this is a part of the model that it'll be really hard to look at, especially up close. I'm just going to, while I'm at it, just in case anyone wants to be nitpicky about it, I'm going to scale it very slowly, and that should be. This is going to be a bit problematic because of the sides. So I'm going to try to see what I can do. Scale it on X should help. Scale it on Y should help. And yeah, I mean, let me see how that looks. Honestly, this here, yes, it will be very visible, but the little edge back there will not. What you can do to help you isolate these things is you can select specific faces like this, and this will only show these faces in the UV editor, which is really useful. I think that the only ones that are really causing the problem are these faces here on the side, because I don't see the texture happening on this face here on the side. I'm just going to select these faces here. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can so that you guys don't need to wait. I will fix that one when I get the chance, so I might as well just select it now. See if the other one's causing me issues too. No? Okay. So I'm going to go to UV editor, and now only these faces are visible, which is really useful for us. I'm just going to go here really quickly, select this, and shave it in a little like this. One problem if you're using textures that are supposed to look very seamless, this will screw up with it because you're only working with this face, and by only working with this face, it doesn't affect the faces on the sides, so the textures might not line up as you want them to. So now with that fixed over there, let's go fix the other pieces here on the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the faces here on the edges, like so. And I'm just going to move it in a little like that. And that should fix the issue. And it did, which is wonderful. Last thing I'm going to do is add a design here to the front part of the shield. This video is already about 30 minutes long, so I'll try to make this part a bit fast. So, I was trying to remember what the word was. Thank God I must have saved something around here. I've had a website here. Yeah, Heraldry Symbols. This is what you want. So, for example, Wikipedia has some nice designs. I'm not very good at making vector art, so I'm gonna have to work with what these websites provide with me. But for example, this website here had a lot of very good looking heraldry symbols, and they even have an explanation of what they mean if you care about it. I'll put, well, you can just get the link if you're interested in even making a shield. Let me see, something interesting. The fleur de lis is always a famous one that we can use. Trying to think if there's anything more interesting around here. The phoenix is always a nice design, and in fact I might actually use the phoenix. So phoenix heraldry. I wanted to see if there was one with fire that I could work with. One that doesn't look like a chicken, hopefully. Nothing to, yeah, this is honestly the most medieval looking one that I can see around here. I wanted to see if the picture here was of higher quality, or if it's really just that small. So I'm going to go ahead and, does it not let me? Ah, of course. So I don't care about copyright. I'm just going to screenshot it because you can't stop me from doing that. Cyber police, please do not contact me. I'm going to lower the tolerance over here. Select the parts I don't really care about. Blue specifically. We don't care about the black either. This. Like this here. I'm going to global so that it selects all the blue. Yes, like that. Ooh, it kind of did screw with the non-blues. So I need to lower this down a little. To select this again so that it knows I'm searching for the blues. 52 is too much. 48 is good enough. So I'm going to go ahead. And now that I have more or less the design that I wanted, I'll just change this around. Fix this here because I don't need it. Can I just see more or less? Okay. I'm just going to see. Oops, I don't care about that text anyway. Now obviously you want to make your own designs when you're making your own textures. You don't want to steal stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and resize this, say 512, 512. It's going to look blurry. I don't really care too much because we have a sort of design now I can work with. The only thing I don't like is the bumpiness here on the sides. Obviously that's just a matter of improving the texture itself. So I'm going to go here, going to brightness. I'm going to set the contrast as high as possible, set the brightness as high as possible. Actually the curves tool might be better for this. I'm going to go ahead, set everything like this. Well, luminosity is what I want, like that. I'm going to go ahead and select the basic shape, right click it, cut it, not right click it. I'm going to put it here on the shield, like so. What I would like to do to fix up all the edges, I'm going to select white, color it in, maximum tolerance. This should force everything that's inside of this to be completely white. It does not look very good. Again, you might want to use your own design when you're making this, so you don't have to deal with these stupid issues. Maybe anti-alias should do stuff. Or, yeah, anti-alias seems like a good idea. Maybe feather. Feather can help mask it, but actually, just like this won't look too bad. And believe me when I say this, because now when I go here to the model and go ahead, shift things around a little, so I want it a bit more centered, like this. Next, I'm going to color this entire thing yellow. So I'm going to go to curves, going to RGB, just red please, down, yeah, okay. Going to go to adjustments, conditional hue saturation, that is poop, that is not yellow. Or yellow, none. It's like this should be fine. I'm going to now select this layer here twice, and I'm going to mess around with the blending modes until I find one that I like. This one looks cool. This one looks interesting. Darken might be the best option here. What I would like to do would be to mix the yellow and the blue, because I both really enjoyed the look of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select this entire texture here on a separate document here. I'm going to use a tool here called outline. I'm going to give it a red outline, maybe no, a blue one, like this. I'm going to cut it, paste it back in here, give it around here like this. Again, you want to work on this better when you're doing it. I'm just rushing it so that you guys can see more or less what to do. Darken. I want to see what overlay, because overlay usually does what I want. No, over here it's not working as well. So I'm gonna go to multiply, and then maybe lower here the brightness. That doesn't look too good either. XOR doesn't quite do what I want. I'll just work with darken for now. Again, obviously I'm not going to keep this design. So now that I have this as I want it to be, I'm going to save the texture. Don't forget to merge up the layers, otherwise it's going to save it as a separate file, since PNGs do not have stored the multiple layer data. And I'm going to go to heater, not heater, it's crest shield, my bad. And now when I try to import the texture, it's not going to change. So what you need to do is you need to go to UV editor, and here you drag the texture in. That should hopefully apply the changes, and now your shield has an awesome looking eagle on it. And that's basically it about the UV mapping. It's all just knowing the tools, having a design in mind. I didn't have one, so. And when you're making textures, you might want to use your own pictures. I mean, I won't tell if you're using someone else's stuff, and just hopefully you're not selling it, because then you can get in deep shit. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I will, if you want to know how to port this texture over to source, then just check the prop making tutorial. Basically, at this point, you just want to follow the prop making tutorial if you're going to be porting your model over to source. And what I will cover in the next tutorials will be extra material stuff, such as making them transparent, making them glow in the dark, bump maps. I'm going to cover that in a bit more in depth. Making certain parts of the model invisible. And I'm also going to try to make one on modifiers, just so that you guys know more or less which ones are useful, which ones are good for just kind of stuff that Source wants us to use. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.